Nurses, what were doctor's orders you refused to carry out? 1. A resident tried to give me a verbal order for a BP med. I let him know all non-emergent orders had to be written. He was pretty pissed. I insisted. After he left the floor, I looked at the order, Labatello 100 mg 4 push Q 10 minutes until systolic pressure less than 150. Guy's pressure was pretty high, post-surgical, and it needed to be addressed. But this was wrong dose. What he gave me was the equivalent for an oral pill form. Dose. I called the resident, and before I could explain, he went off on me. I hung up. First years don't get to yell, particularly when I'm saving both of us from a big med error. I gave him a couple minutes, called and asked him to come to the unit for a discussion. He had already called the senior resident for nurse problems, so they were both on their way. I tried to keep it between first year and me, but he insisted on making his call. They both arrived at the same time, kind of yucking it up and making snide comments about nursing. Senior Rees was about to start in on me, so I handed him the order. He looked at it, shook his head and said, "Thanks." He motioned for first year to take a walk with him. I think he gave him the "listen to nurses, they can save your career" speech. A couple minutes later, first year checked on his PT, wrote some new orders and quietly thanked me for the help. 2. Not a nurse, but I can tell you an instance where a nurse ignored a doctor order. My son was 2 months old, with trouble breathing. Took him to the ER. Doctor did blood tests and listened to his chest. His lungs sounded clear, so he wanted my son discharged. The RN who came in to discharge my son refused to do so after hearing him. She told me that she was ordering a chest x-ray because she didn't like the way his breathing sounded. She didn't listen to his chest, just the way he was trying to breathe. Come to find out, the x-ray showed pneumonia. You could tell that the doctor was upset because she went against his discharge order, but he had no choice but to admit my son, who was in the hospital for 2 days. 3. This happened when I was a new nurse working in a hospital. A patient was returned to her room after getting dialysis treatment. A resident, who'd been waiting to see her, went to her room for general assessment. Patient completely oriented and fine. He came out and told me that she's looking really well. You can go ahead and take out her Permaceth. I was too stunned to even answer as I watched him walk out of her room. Of course, I knew not to do such a thing. Can you even imagine? Another incident in the neurology department while discharging a patient who had had a history of 2 strokes. Her latest was why she was in the hospital. The doctor prescribed a lower dose than what she had been taking of the anticoagulant, Coumadin, for her to continue at home. I questioned the doctor about it and he snapped at me to just follow his orders. I then went to my manager and told her about it. She thought about it and said to follow his orders. I then went to the hospital supervisor who told me to follow the doctor's orders. I went back to filling out the discharge paperwork, trying to think of a way to correct the error. The doctor came back to me. It had been a good 45 minutes past, and apologized for snapping at me, that he'd received bad news that day. I gently talked to him and asked him again about the dosage. He took a look and couldn't believe it. He went back to his notes and realized the error, then thanked me and changed the dosage. Always do right by the patient. 4. An intellectually disabled kid was on the theater list for, get this, a blood test. His dipshit family doctor could not get near him to draw blood, so he booked him on the theater list to be sedated. As soon as the kid appeared, this dipshit doctor ordered me to crash tackle him to the ground. I refused. I said, "You are ordering me to assault a patient? That is not a lawful instruction." Not only that, but he will never trust anyone in hospital again. Even the bitch nurse unit manager agreed. So, the procedure was cancelled. I helped the kid get dressed. Then he and I walked out to his carer. The blood test? Vitamin D level. FFS. 5. I was caring for a pregnant patient. She was 36 weeks along, 8 months. She was admitted for vaginal bleeding which was intermittent. It had stopped, so the MD decided to deliver her and ordered Pitocin to induce labor. The woman had more intermittent bleeding, so I did not follow the order to induce. The MD was angry and asked why I didn't follow her order. I told her and the charge nurse backed me up. Within a couple of hours the patient called out. When I responded, I found her in the bathroom on the toilet. She was reciting the Lord's Prayer. There was blood everywhere. I called the MD to come stat, and by the time she arrived I had moved her into the OR and had her ready for a C-section. She and the baby did well. When I went to see her the next day, and with a subsequent delivery with another baby, she introduced me to her family as the nurse who saved her life. I did what I believe any prudent nurse would have / should have done. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.